CBSE Board, Class 11, History, Chapter 3, Part 20, Audio by Renee Matthew. Reading the universe became easier and was really different for people to read the universe. What is the meaning of that? With all these revolution and changes in ideas and discovery by many people, things started changing in how people looked at the universe and read and studied about the universe. Galileo, the astronomer, remarked once that Bible lights the road to heaven. It is the only source for people to reach the heaven. But it did not tell about how heavens work. That was in an ambiguity. Everybody was not able to understand how the heavens work. Now the work of these thinkers showed one particular aspect, that knowledge is a distinct belief. It was based on observation and experiments. Without good observation and without many experiments, one will not be able to have an access to knowledge. The scientists had shown the way through experiments and investigations, and that came to be called as physics, chemistry and biology, which expanded rapidly. They started with experiments and investigations, and that is how these things came into being. It is only because of their hard work and the way they paved way for these branches of study. Historians were asked to label this new approach. They found out that this particular new approach or branch to the knowledge of man was to be labeled as the scientific revolution. So apart from the thinking style, apart from the thought process and everything, science also had undergone a major revolution, the scientific revolution. There was a lot of transformation of ideas which took place in the minds of skeptics and non-believers, people in confusion, people who did not believe in anything. And God started to be replaced by nature as a source of creation. God was replaced instead of nature because everybody started focusing their attention on nature. So now God was to be replaced by nature. Those people who had their faith in God started talking about a distant God who did not directly interfere with the happenings of man, with the life of man, especially when men lived in this materialistic world after worldly pleasures. And they also started talking about free will and choice and all those things. Now these ideas were promoted and propagated by scientific societies, and they started establishing a culture of their own in the public domain, and that was known as a scientific culture. The scientific culture became very important these days, and that is how the scientific societies propagated. The Paris Academy, which was established in 1670, and another organization known as Royal Society in London, saw the promotion of natural knowledge, which was formed in 1662. They started holding lectures and they also conducted experiments. They had a lot of discussions which was also kept for public viewing. The people were also allowed to have an access to it, to see the findings, to discuss on what really happened inside the society, inside these two movements, the Paris Academy and the Royal Society in London. Now we need to check if there was really a European Renaissance in the 14th century, if there was something known as a Renaissance in the 14th century. Now we need to look back and retrace the concept of Renaissance. Can we see this period as making a great break, a prominent break with the past, the rebirth of ideas from Greek and Roman traditions? Was there a pathway? Was there a break actually? The rebirth of ideas and all these things. Was this earlier period a time of darkness, especially 12th and 13th century? Was it a time of darkness? And was it really the rebirth of ideas from Greek and Roman platform? There were writers like Peter Burke of England, and he suggested that, especially he's a recent writer, he suggested that he was actually exaggerating the difference between the period and the one that preceded it. Okay, especially the term Renaissance. Actually, Renaissance implies that the Greek and Roman civilizations were reborn. That was the actual meaning of this at that particular time. And the scholars and artists who lived during this time substituted pre-Christian worldview for the Christian one. The meaning is the rebirth of Greek and Roman civilizations, and people started seeing Christianity, the true Christianity, instead of the pre-Christian worldview, which was totally corrupt. So that was totally replaced. Now all the arguments were exaggerated. What were the arguments? There were a lot of scholars in the early centuries. They became familiar with the Greek and Roman cultures. And religion was playing a very important role in people's lives, especially in the early stages. And most of the scholars were really thorough with the Greek and Roman cultures. Now, to contrast the Renaissance as a period of dynamism and artistic creativity, and the Middle Ages as a period of gloom and lack of development, is an oversimplification. There was a lot of exaggeration, I told you. Many people were familiar with a lot of things that actually happened. Religion was dominating the lives of people. So they told that Renaissance was a period where people's creativity flourished. And they said that Middle Ages was known as a period of gloom and darkness, and it lacked development. That was like an oversimplification. Many elements associated with Renaissance in Italy can be traced back to 12th and 13th centuries. Many things which happened in Italy during the Renaissance happened even before this particular age. Some historians say that the 9th century in France, there was a similar literary and artistic blooming which happened during the 9th century. It is not that all the artistic creativity skills sprang up only during the Renaissance in Italy. It happened even before that. Now, why all these changes took place? Because Roman civilization saw a great downfall. After that, there was no place for anybody. There was no space for the people to discover their talents. That is what happened. But these things, the artistic blossoming and everything, took place even in the 9th century. That is what historians found out. There were a lot of cultural changes which took place in Europe at this time. And it was not shaped only by the classical civilization of Rome and Greece. We cannot give the complete credit to the Romans and the Greeks. It was not completely shaped by them. Of course, ideas flew in from different parts of the world. There was a recovery which took place of the Roman culture, literary and archaeological recovery. It created a lot of admiration for that civilization. Whatever was revived during this time, especially as archaeological discoveries or as literary recoveries, all these things could feel the admiration from all over the world. Technologies and skills which sprung up in Asia had moved far ahead. It progressed of what the Greeks and Romans had known. So it's not that it's only the knowledge that they gave to us sprang up or revived. Technologies and skills, of course, were ahead, and it was much better than what was used by Greeks and Romans in those times. Only thing is, they saw the outbreak of so much of literacy and skills and artistic painting and art and all those things, because humanism was there. Okay. And the world got connected. So when the world got connected, ideas and opinions also started getting transported. New techniques of navigation allowed people to sail to different parts of the world, to discover trade routes. When commerce expanded, it was easier for them to fill their pockets. Okay, those things were possible. It was not possible earlier. Expansion of Islam took place. Mongol conquest also linked Asia and North of Africa with Europe. So expansion of Islam was something which gave them a lot of ideas. And all these places were linked, Asia, North Africa and Europe. Not only politically but also in terms of trade and of learning skills. People started learning a lot of things through their trade and commerce expansions. It's not that the Europeans learned only from the Greek and the Romans, but also they learned from India, from Arabia, from Iran, from Central Asia, and also China. So they owe a lot to all these places. It is a mixture. The only difference is they made a great use of all these places. They consolidated everything that they learned. Their depths were not acknowledged for a long time, because when the history of this period started to be written, historians saw it from a Europe-centered viewpoint. So all the discoveries and learnings that they had from all these places were not acknowledged. They did not accept. Of course, they accepted at that time, but after that, they did not want it to be acknowledged. And they started seeing, because Europeans started growing so much. They had all the facilities by them. They just had to get the ideas from these places, and they were rich also. And they made the other parts of the workers and everybody to just work for them. It was easier for them to expand, and they had all the facilities. So later they grew so much that people started seeing it as a Europe-centered world. People started only looking at the expansion of Europe and their power. They did not understand that they got part of these ideas from the other parts of the world also. There was a lot of changes which took place in culture, social and economic spheres of people, especially in private and public spheres of life. All these things started getting separated. Public life was different from private life. Public sphere meant the area of government and of formal religion. Very important point. Public sphere meant government and religion. It did not come under private sphere. Private sphere included the family and personal religion. Formal religion that is accepted all throughout the country is different from your own religion. That is whatever you accept. So family and personal religion. The other one is government and formal religion. Two different spheres. Very important part. Now the individual had a private as well as a public role. Individuals should have. They were expected to have both private sphere and public spheres also. They were not simply a member of just one of the three orders. They were not supposed to belong to just one of the three orders. They were also a person in their own right. Just by belonging to one of the orders and fulfilling their duty was not just expected from them. Of course, a person had to be independent. The person should have some citizenship, like some kind of rights, not citizenship, but some kind of rights as a person dwelling in a particular place. An artist was not only just a member of a guild. He was independent. He was known for the artistic skills that he had. Earlier, he used to be just a representative or just a number in the guild. Okay, but now it is like people started knowing each other through names. Like Michelangelo, very good for sculpture, very good for painting, for mixture, all these things. So like that, people started knowing the talents by their names. In the 18th century, something else happened. The sense of the individual would be expressed in a political form. Everything started getting expressed in political form. And it was a belief that all individuals had equal political rights. Everything took a political form and everything had political rights. So that is what happened in the 18th century. It's not just individual right, but also politically they had some right. Another development which took place in different regions of Europe was their separate sense of identity. They had an identity based on their language, based on their upbringing and everything, which was really special. And Europe, earlier it was united partly by the Roman Empire. The influence of the Romans was there, and later it was united by the Latins and Christianity. So much of trouble it has underwent. So much of cultural transformation took place in Europe. The Romans came and gave them something. The Latin people, they came and gave something. All this conquering, everything was happening. And then William the Conqueror came. French people came and invaded. So all these things started dissolving into states. They started forming their own identity and language. And each was united by a common language. So that is how they started tracing their own identity. But as I told you earlier, they understood what they were meant for. It started growing from there. Once they understood their roots, once they were able to take form of their roots, they were able to expand from there. But the other parts of the world were deprived by this time. They were conquered. Then later the Europeans, as you know, they went and conquered all the other places. But it was a little more, it was too much. It reached the extreme, and that is why they were thrown out, right? So it is like they had their own sphere for expansion, and we saw how they took the correct space and how they took advantage of everything and how they learned everything from others, especially other parts of the countries, and how they used it for their own development.